Hey y'all, it's the Doge, back again with some more DnD Horror Stories. In today's episode, we have a few stories about games that are plagued by a thing that also happens beyond the scope of tabletop RPGs. Rude people. But before we get into that, this chart shows that a lot of you watching are not yet subscribed, so why not do so today and click the bell. That way you'll be notified whenever a new video comes out. Right, Nipsey?
Yes. Do what the Doge said. I really like subscribers. And this feather.
Me too, Nipsey. Me too. Anyway, let's get right into these stories. How to Kill a DM's Joy in One Sentence. By a Reddit user, JimBaby. I was talking to some friends recently, and they reminded me of this little horror story that happened at the beginning of the pandemic. During the early days of quarantine, myself and one of my roommates threw ourselves into playing D&D online with our friends for multiple times a week as a way of socializing. We'd already been playing in the same campaigns for years. We were just doing more of it because we almost never left our houses. A few months in, our other roommate, who'd really been suffering with cabin fever and being separated from her other friends, asked if we could all do something together. Almost like a family game night at the house. I don't remember who suggested we have a home D&D campaign, but we were all into the idea. I'd been playing with roommate number 1 for years, and had played with roommate number 2 before, and it had gone pretty okay. Though, roommate 2 did have a tendency to not really get it. I'm not sure how to describe it, but she just never immersed herself into the game or setting. But she saw how into the game me and roommate 1 were, and she wanted to have that kind of fun with us. It was decided that roommate 1 would DM, while me and roommate 2 would play. She told us we'd be playing in a light-hearted modern fantasy setting, with some spooky elements. So we both made our characters, and roommate 2, who I will now refer to as Firbolg, seemed really excited about it. We had 2 sessions. The first was a simple setup session, where our characters met and were subjugated to a spooky happening in the building we both lived in. It was honestly a really creepy and well done set piece, and I could tell how proud the DM was with it. Session 2 picked up after we fought off the monster, and we discovered what was causing it, and put an end to the mystery. Our eccentric landlord then offered our characters free rent if we helped her protect the building from more spooky magic. I was having a really good time, and in the first session, it seemed like Firbolg was too. At the end of the second session, I was invested in tying off all the loose ends of the first mystery and getting ready for the second. Then the Firbolg said something like, "So, we're just going to be solving problems in the apartment building?" And the DM said something like, "Well, at the beginning, yeah." Which is when the Firbolg laughed and said, "That's kinda stupid." I saw all the joy leave DM's eyes. What is wild to me is that we'd had a session 0. The DM explained what sort of campaign it would be, with smaller stakes and a quirky horror comedy feel. Firbolg agreed to all of that, but I guess she really didn't understand it. I tried to pipe in at the time and say that I was enjoying the game, but also ask what sort of game Firbolg wanted to play then, if not this. I said we could shift things a little and make something work. She never gave a solid answer, just reiterated that this campaign, which she agreed to play, was dumb. Suffice it to say, we did not end up with a house D&D game. DM actually felt disencouraged from ever running a game again, since she'd put so much work into this one. It was heartbreaking to see, and disappointing, since I'd been really enjoying her story. We never played in a game with Firbolg again after that. Wow, what a dick move. Even if you aren't used to tabletop RPGs, you should still have the wherewithal to realize that it's pretty shitty to call anything someone is working on, especially if it's for you, dumb. I hate to hear that this DM let this get to them to the point that they haven't attempted DMing a game since. Hopefully that changes, because that concept is really creative, and I for one would love to be part of that hook. Let's move on to the next story. My heartbreaking moment as a DM by Reddit user Ishines. I started this homebrew online campaign around August, and we've met weekly ever since. I engaged with everyone before the game started, asked if they were wanting more combat or roleplay elements, what they're comfortable with, etc. The fighter of my group, the one I'll be talking about, stated they wanted more RP elements and grim tones. The first major arc was a history-independent story, in a sense where it didn't involve anywhere near to any backstories of the players, to allow them to build personalities and let the characters bond over time. However, through this arc, a good amount of roleplay occurred through everyone else, but the player in question was kind of quiet or absent, which is fine. I don't expect everyone to open up immediately or be as vocal, but throughout this, they were continually late, wouldn't show up with no warning, or not paying attention at all. The next arc pulls around, and I figured it was because the events didn't portray their character or something. So I focused the arc on them, doing my best to get them involved and put the main NPC in direct relation with them. Throughout the sessions, there were moments where the fighter would randomly deafen themselves on Discord, or would just be gone from their desk entirely without even a little warning. However, the final climax comes up, and a scene is set up where they basically get this gut-wrenching piece of his brother, his strive to get better as a fighter, dying before his eyes from the next BBEG. I set up this moment and gave him a part of his brother's sword, a +1 greatsword. I go through this 4-minute description of events, and I look at the chat and find that he was self-deafened for over 6 minutes. Personally, this just destroyed me internally. I put so much effort into this campaign, and especially the ending of this arc, so when he completely missed out on everything on his own volition, it felt like a stab in the chest. The next steps are a big talk with him and seeing if he wants to continue. I saw some valid critiques in the comment on my post, so I wanted to clarify. I wasn't upset that the fighter wasn't emotionally invested in the story, or that they didn't have the reaction I wanted. I just felt extremely disrespected that they didn't even have the courtesy to even listen. I completely understand not being fully engaged, especially online, but I take hours out of my week to plan this out for everyone to enjoy, and it really didn't feel good when they got the most important part of the arc and I didn't even get the chance. It took my fun right out of it, which I believe is just as important as the player's enjoyment. My DMing style is very open for them to engage how they please. I do a slightly linear style, which they asked for, but literally only write down the setting and description of events as they arrive. That way I don't railroad them or take away any form of storytelling freedom from them. When the fighter usually deafened, it would be during combat or something like a different player going on their own for a quick second. The deafen was annoying, but not a big deal. There were times I noticed they had a game like Minecraft up while we would play, which irked me, but I understand some people need that stimulus. Lastly, I didn't have a talk with them beforehand, so I don't think this is the end of the line for them or anything. As I phrased in the original post, I'm going to have a talk with them and see how they feel. They're not 100% of the blame in the slightest. I had a big part that I failed to do. But I do appreciate the comments and criticism I've received in favor or against me. I can understand OP's displeasure with Fighter ignoring the game. DM put a lot of work into creating a world for the players to explore, and a player to passively be ignoring it and doing other things is kind of insulting. And I see no issue with what OP said to Fighter in the message. It in no way sounded like OP was attacking them in any way. And I think Fighter probably just had a bit of an issue with criticism. Thankfully, it sounds like Fighter apologized for reacting that way, and OP's game is going forward with the option for Fighter to join whenever he's ready. Though, what do you think? Did OP do the right thing here? And before we get into the last story of the day, Lucky has a message. Thanks, Lucky. Now let's get into the story. The One Time We Had to Kick Out a Player by Reddit user LongJumpingAside164. Hi guys. first post ever on Reddit. Hope you enjoy. It was a Sunday morning, and I was trying to get ready to DM my first D&D 5e game. I had GM'd other RPGs for years, and a friend, we will call him Druid, asked if I could tune his bass guitar. I agreed, and he showed up a few hours later and decided to hang out a little longer. Then the players showed up for the game, and he asked if he could play. We had 5 players, so one more wouldn't be a problem, and we agreed. Everyone had a ready character concept and background, so we were just filling the character sheets. The guy made a dwarf druid, no background, and we started playing. The druid's character acted in a very weird way, but it was funny. Then, in the middle of the first battle, he stopped fighting to check a statue I described. Luckily, it was the baddie's safe, so they ran to protect it, giving the party a certain strategic advantage towards defeating them. The druid kept doing random stuff in combat and social encounters for the next 2 sessions. Sometimes it was annoying, but usually it was fine and even funny. The real problem was when he started making fun of the players out of game. He would comment on their height, their voice, and their hair. We made it clear that nobody liked it and that he should stop. Then, at around the 4th session, the druid made 4 mistakes that were his doom. 1. The game was scheduled at 4 p.m. He showed up at 2 p.m. thinking that it was 1400 hours. We usually use the 24-hour format in Brazil, even though it was written on our group chat. 2. He said he was uncomfortable with my wife breastfeeding our baby in our home. 3. He kept making fun of people after the other players had arrived on time. And 4. The group decided to look for a wizard who they found out was the twin of their antagonist. When they got there, this friendly wizard's tower was in the middle of the woods and entirely made of glass. They needed to solve a riddle to enter the tower. The wizard used it as a form of choosing her clients. The druid wanted to break the glass and enter the tower. I told him the glass was obviously built with magic, and he probably couldn't break it. Nobody wanted to help the druid, so they focused on solving the riddle, as the druid tried everything to break the glass. After failing several times, he accused me of railroading them and not letting him make any decisions. Everyone asked me to kick him out of the game after this session, and we politely said he wouldn't be invited anymore. Am I the asshole? I mean, I would let them in another way if they found one, but I couldn't think of any other way in because of the way I designed the tower. We also told the druid that he was annoying everyone. The group eventually decided to seek the tower and to solve the riddle. So, is OP the asshole here? I would say no. I mean, sure, this guy was acting in a that guy mattering game, but with some correction, he possibly could have changed. Though, at the same time, maybe he wouldn't, and OP nipped the problem in the bud before it could get any worse. Also, I don't understand why he was so weird about OP's wife breastfeeding. You are in his house. Just don't look if it makes you uncomfortable. Anyways, that's all I have to say on this one. Do you have a story that you would like to be shared on the channel? If so, be sure to post it to the DnD Doge subreddit. As always, I appreciate all of you, and hope all of your rolls are natural 20s. Until next time.